Let you in 3, 2, and 1.
Bring us in, Jerry.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm sitting here with Ray. My name is Jay. How you doing today, Ray?
I'm doing just dandy, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We are also here with the beautiful and lovely you can hear in the background. Who is that, Ray?
That's Lois Lane.
That is Lois Lane. Y'all just welcome her to the show as well. We'll be bringing her on. Today we're going to be doing some podcasting, and today we're going to be talking about UFC 209 with the man with the mind, and he is here to give us the full rundown. How you doing today, Ray?
Doing great. Before we get into it, I just want to say thanks to the good people at Hyper Ice for sponsoring our podcast today. If you're like me and you like to lift weights and roll, but stretching is fucking useless and you never do it, even though we know it's great, people at Hyper Ice have made about a 5-pound ball. It's rigid, it's plastic coated, 3 vibrating settings, third one guaranteed to just break up any and everything that's going to leave you not wanting to train the next day. And once you hit that north side of 30, just like I have, and I think Jerry recently did, preventative medicine takes a place in your workout routine. So big shout out again to the people at Hyper Ice. Google them. You can find them on Amazon.com right now for $149. Shipping is going to be included. UFC 209. Did you see Wonder Boy versus Thompson 1, Jerry?
I did, actually. We watched that together, didn't we?
We did indeed. Do you remember what happened?
I remember that Woodley almost tore off Thompson's head, and Thompson definitely showed a lot of heart, but we ran into a majority draw after a slight...
It wasn't actually announced a majority draw in the beginning.
No, it wasn't, actually.
It was announced, was it unanimous or split decision for Woodley? Then I think it was Buffer brought him back in, and Tyron Woodley actually almost lost his cool in the middle of the ring, which I can understand. 25 minutes of a highly contested affair, all of a sudden to be brought back out and say, imagine if Trump got elected and then they just walked back out and say, hey, JK, just kidding.
It was a little bit like a Steve Harvey moment, actually.
It was a little bit of a Steve Harvey moment. It was an athletic affair. Stephen Thompson didn't quite utilize his kicks at the range that I thought he was going to use. When I saw him, and MMA math very rarely works. I'm actually quoting that guy, Brendan Schaub. I'm sure everyone's a fan of him. When I saw Rory McDonald absolutely dominate Tyron Woodley, neutralize his athleticism, Rory McDonald's obviously a superior grappler and wrestler than Stephen Thompson is, but just utilizing that long, lean jab that he does, Tyron Woodley was basically left dumbfounded. And Stephen Thompson has so many more attacks from range in his repertoire. I was expecting to see a little bit more aggression from him. Tyron Woodley was much more effective at, saving a little bit of gas. He was effective. I think he knocked him down in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. And in 3-round affairs, we've actually seen Tyron Woodley, not look quite as fresh. But there's also a price to be paid. You got a guy like him. Do you know who Hector Lombard is?
Yes.
And Yoel Romero, no for gay Jesus. I am no for gay Jesus. You have guys that are just that strong, freaky athletic, who are going to suplex guys with zero technique, just impose their will.
Or just have the luck of the devil and throw a flying knee on the guy who's fighting in his hometown.
Yeah, when you have that much lean muscle, the body has to transport oxygen, and it's going to take a toll. And at the end of that toll, what it's going to mean is, remember Street Fighter 2, you had the power bar up in the top? Mm-hmm. So when you see guys just throwing these big lean-in hooks at 100%, you can't do that for 25 minutes. And, we see both sides work. We see a guy like Michael Bisping, win the belt that I think he's 38 years old. He's a guy that throws punches and bunches. He's a volume fighter. Nick and Nate Diaz are 2 guys who proved that volume can be effective. And then you have a hybrid guy like Robbie Lawler, who can... he's got knockout power in both hands. I wouldn't say quite as explosive as Tyron Woodley, but he's also got a gas tank. That guy can fight for 15 rounds. He just left ATT as well, too. That's kind of a strange thing.
All right, everybody, we are back. I'm here with Ray. I'm Jay, and we're going to be talking about UFC 209. Take it away, Ray.
All right, the card isn't fully announced yet, but we've got a couple of the main fights that have been announced.
Ooh, can I announce the fights and have you break them down?
Absolutely, you can.
All right. So, are we going to go from main event?
Start at Todd Duffy, and we're going to work our way up.
All right, we're going to start at Todd Duffy versus Mark Godbeer. We're going to start at Todd Duffy versus Mark Godbeer.
All right, Todd Duffy is one of those guys. He actually fought Alistair Overeem, and I think it was Dynamite. It was one of those promotions that came up in Japan after Pride fell and was sold to the UFC. If you don't know who Todd Duffy is, imagine if Brock Lesnar was an Abercrombie & Fitch model. You guys aren't going to see this, but I'm just going to pull up an image for Jerry.
And Jerry's going to fix it up in post-production so that you do see it.
Absolutely. Here we go. We're going to images. Todd Duffy. This guy is bodied the fuck up. Doesn't he look like a young, handsome little Brock Lesnar, almost in a way?
Dude, what is he doing fighting? He should just be on the covers of magazines all day.
Yeah, well, that's actually from Muscle and Fitness. He's one of those guys where, body doesn't really mean a ton. Mark Hunt's actually on that card, probably one of the least impressive physiques in the UFC. But Todd Duffy's one of those guys where if he could put a couple of wins together, he could be the marketable face. He was in Never Back Down 2. He's done some stuff in major film production. He's a marketable star in the heavyweight division. Even if he's just a gatekeeper, we just recently lost Antonio Bigfoot Silva. He fought in, I think it was Russia. He fought somebody last week. Roy Nelson is on his way out. Next to Kane and JDS and Overeem, Stipe, who's my guy. Shout out to Stipe, Cleveland's own. There's not a lot of guys in the UFC heavyweight division that can sell fights. They're giving him a guy who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, so I'm going to go ahead and assume they're going to reset him a little bit and try to build. Let's see how old Todd Duffy is. I doubt he's even 30 yet.
He's a big cat, that's for sure.
He's 31. He's 31, which in the heavyweight division isn't really that big of a deal. Stipe's in his early 30s. Overeem, I think, is 37. Big Country's 38. Derek Lewis is 37. It's the one division where you don't see a ton of success before the age of 30. And at 31, let's go to his record real quick. Just bring up where he's at. He got knocked the fuck out by Frank Mir. I forgot about that. Frank Mir just caught him with one punch, put it on the button. He had victories over Anthony Hamilton, who's a UFC veteran, Neil Grove, Tim Hague, who's a UFC veteran. There's the Overeem fight. Yeah, that was Dynamite 2010. And since 2010, he's only fought 4 times. So that's a guy who's been checking out stuff in film. He's been trying to make a living in muscle and fitness. Apparently that's not working out, so he's going to fight. Keep an eye out for Todd Duffy, possible face, possible Reebok-sponsored athlete. Good-looking son of a bitch. And Mark Godbeard doesn't have a page. I've never heard of him, so
But such is the way of the fist. We never know what may come of that.
Right.
All right, moving on. We have a featherweight fight with Darren Elkins. With Darren Elkins. Moving on to the featherweight division, we have a fight with Darren Elkins. We have
Mirsad Bektik.
Moving on to the featherweight division, we have a bout between Darren Elkins and Mirsad Bektik.
Darren Elkins is one of those guys who's been around forever, and if you're a legitimate UFC fan, he's a name that's instantly going to resonate with you. He's had a couple of really good fights. His last 2 were wins over Godfredo Pepe and Chaz Skelly, who are 2 guys. He did lose to Hakron Diaz, who's a UFC veteran, Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens, and Chad Mendez. He did beat Hatsu Hayoki, and he did beat Steven Seiler and Diego Brandao. So he's had one of those careers in the UFC where, once you get inside that top 12 tier competition, you just can't hang. But he's a guy who's been making a living for a long time. How many of his last fights from the UFC? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 consecutive fights in the UFC, so he should be a household name by now. Look for Darren Elkins to impose his will against Mirsad Bektik, who is from, I think he's from Bosnia. Where is he from?
You got it.
Is
Bosnian.
Okay, he is Bosnian. That's okay. 25, young guy.
Wait a minute. Let's look at that martial arts record there, Ray. That's I'm not seeing any red on his wiki.
That's 11-0. He's had, again, Chaz Skelly. That's a mutual opponent. Russell Doan and Lucas Martins hasn't really faced the top tier competition. And when you start facing guys who are in the top 15, there's going to be a little bit of parity. You're going to see some red unless you're a world beater. So when I see a guy that's 27-8 and has 16 consecutive fights in the UFC, and a guy who's an 11-0 who's had 4 fights in the UFC, I don't see this. I haven't seen enough from Bektik to really push the envelope where I think that he's going to be able to impose his will on a seasoned veteran like Darren Elkins. And Darren Elkins always puts on a show, so that's one that's worth turning in for.